It's your open source advocate, and I'm back with another video, and today we're going to talk about RPort. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute, RPort went closed source, and it did. So I did several videos over the last few years talking about RPort and how to install it, how to get it up and running. I did an update on RPort as well. I also did a video comparing RPort to several other great tools for remote desktop and RMM kind of capabilities. And I was really happy about it. And just after I did this video where I compared them, unfortunately, you probably saw the news where RealVNC purchased RPort. They had promised to keep it open source, but then they pretty promptly closed their source code. It was a pretty crappy move. So if you use RealVNC or if you've ever backed RealVNC, they did something that was pretty crappy. Now, I want to say, I am an open source advocate. I love open source software, and I believe that open source software will only survive if we as the people who love it support that software. I've been doing several different series about building a business on open source, about building a managed service provider business on open source specifically, and I believe that it can be done completely with open source software, and I believe that it can be done very well. The thing about it is, I encourage you all the time to support those projects monetarily. So when I say build a business, I mean build a business where you're making money, but then take some of that money and go purchase their support system or go purchase a license. And a license in open source is kind of a weird thing to say, but sometimes they'll have like a pro license that has extra features or something like that that's added on to the open source version. Sometimes they just have some kind of support licensing. Sometimes they have a hosted service, and whether you're paying for the hosted service and actually using the hosted service doesn't really matter. You could just go and pay for hosted service, not use it, and use your own self-hosting, and they don't care. As long as you're paying them something that helps them keep going, something that encourages that product to continue, that's how we keep open source software open. I would imagine RealVNC saw the potential of RPort. They realized, wow, this is super easy to get set up on your own. There's no reason for people to pay us, and they're not going to. And their decision was completely financial. And they said, okay, we're going to close the source code, and if people want to keep using it, they'll have to pay us for a license. This is how businesses stay in business. You can't stay in business if you don't make money. You can't pay your employees. You can't keep that circle of life that exists going if you don't make money. I know there's a lot of people who come to my channel and they'll immediately post, well, if it's not completely free, as in dollars, then it's not open source. And that's absolutely incorrect. You have misunderstood the complete meaning of the use of the word free in English in this case. It is not meant to be free as in gratis. Okay, the Spanish word for free money, like it doesn't cost you anything. It is free as in libre, the Latin term for freedom. That's the free that we're talking about when we say free and open source software. You have to make that distinction. You have to understand that English in this case is a confusing way to phrase this, but it is the truth. It is what it is intended to be. We have got OpenRPort, which is awesome. I didn't even know this existed. Somebody pointed it out to me a couple of weeks ago on some comments on one of my videos. Probably an RPort video actually, and I'm super happy that they did, because yeah, you can see here it was last year the last time that they really did something. Now 3 weeks ago they updated the README. Anytime it's just a README update, that to me that's not like a really great update. Like, we need some code updates that make us feel a little better, like, hey, maybe this is being maintained 8 months ago. Okay, they did some stuff, they modified the license. So yeah, it's not a ton of stuff going on. I mean, somebody forked this several years ago, and then you can see some updates from last year, but any of the recent updates are just license updates and README updates. Now, I have been in a discussion with these guys, and when you do this, you can go to GitHub, you can check on the discussions link. If it's up here, you can usually go in and post something in the discussions, and you can see right here that it says, is this somewhat safe to rely on? I'm willing to help or donate, but I don't want it to disappear like the old RPort. So somebody posted this, and I agree 100% with this sentiment. So I clicked in, and this guy posted what he thinks and what he's worried about. And, as we go down, I just kind of read through this to see what these guys say. And then I went down and I kept looking, and I was like, okay, I'm glad to see this is here too. Is there a way to donate? Because I didn't see a donate on the main page originally. Maybe it's there now, but I didn't see it here. Usually it's over here on the right side where you can do like donations, and you see there's nothing here about donations, which is kind of strange. They should really add it over here if they can. But he posted links to get to the donation areas to make sure that we can support this thing. So I went out and gave them some money. I wanted to make sure that they could actually continue this. And in his comment, I want to go back to it. So give me just a second. So right here, he says, hey, thanks for your support. We're working on the new front end also. So if you'll remember, OpenRPort was an open source back-end tool that had a front end that was not open source in the beginning. And I've been clear about that the entire time that I've shown you this application. It was not open source for the front end, the graphical user interface that they had available. The open source part was the back end, all of the tooling and things, and then they have an API that you can create your own front end if you want to, and that's what these guys are doing. Now, I don't see any evidence of that in this repository yet. I don't know if that'll be in this repository or some other repository, but I did ask for a donation link, so it's here, and I'll have that in the show notes and description if you would like to go donate to make sure that this continues. They've got some the github.com sponsor /OpenRPort, so it's there. I just don't know why the link isn't there on their main page, but it should, they should add that for sure. And it tells them we're committed to keeping this open source. That's great. I love that. I want to see some progress on the code and everything, but I thought, okay, why don't we go through and show you guys how to get this installed? It's actually just as simple as the original OpenRPort. You're just switching out a couple of URLs, but we're going to go through that today. So I wanted to give you that history just so you'd know where I'm coming from with this thing. I wanted to make sure that you understand what OpenRPort is, that it's a fork of the original OpenRPort, and this includes the front end, which will have the real VNC labeling on it, so don't freak out about that. That's why I wanted to point out. In this comment, he said, we're working on a new front end. That really gets me excited because they're actually trying to get out there and do something to make it so that we have a new updated front end. It's going to be an open source front end. So I'm excited about that. That's enough of me preaching about what's going on and telling you what's going on. I want to get into the update and let you know how to install this thing and get it running. So we're about to get into that. But first, I want to say thank you so very much to all of my patrons over at Patreon, to all of my subscribers at YouTube, and to all the people who send me just buy me a beer, buy me a coffee. It makes such a huge difference in my day when I see those things come through. When I see a patron join, or when I see somebody send me a beer or a coffee, or I get a really great comment from you guys on YouTube. I mean, it brightens up my day to see that. It helps me just have such a better day. And sometimes I need that. I love doing this channel. This is a passion channel. This is not a channel where I make enough money to have a living at it. But I do love doing this, and I love providing you guys information about these open source projects. So I appreciate that you are appreciating me, and I can't tell you how much it means. As always, I will have everything I'm about to do in my show notes, and that's over at wiki.opensourceisawesome.com. I will probably just update the old show notes for OpenRPort, but I realized that I removed those. So I'll go back and see if I can recover those. I removed them because it had closed source and people kept asking me about it whenever they're trying to go and find the instructions and things like that. So I just put a notice there that it was closed source now. I will update this so that it's an OpenRPort version of it. The best thing you can do, though, is always go out to the source documentation, which is their knowledge base. So this is their knowledge base. I'll have this linked in the show notes and the description. If you go out here, you'll see pretty easily installing OpenRPort server. This isn't hard. It just tells you some of the things you're going to need. And then here is the installation on-premise. So once you get here, you just click next. It'll take you to the on-premise. It's going to show you a diagram of kind of what's going on and how this is supposed to work. It's pretty useful. And then down here, it's going to tell you, hey, you're going to go grab this script. The only difference in this line from the original line is that this used to say rport.io instead of openrport.io. So if you already have this in your history, you can just go back and get it and then just type in open instead of rport.io. Now, if you're already running OpenRPort, they have instructions on how to upgrade from OpenRPort to OpenRPort. It's not super complicated, but you should definitely read through that, because if you're going to be upgrading an installation, you want to make sure you don't bork that installation. Now, if you're not using it for anything, you just had it sitting there running and it's not doing anything, I'd say just wipe it out and start over. But if you've already got machines connected and all that kind of stuff, you probably want to go through their upgrade documentation to make sure you don't break anything. I would definitely say if you have a test system to try it on first, do that, and then go and do it on your production system once you're comfortable with it, but that's always the case. Now there's a couple of caveats here. As we go through, there's going to be this curl command. We're going to go grab it. So this is just the same command I just talked about, except they replaced rport with OpenRPort. And once you get that, you're going to run that script, and it's going to help you install everything in rport. So if you want to know what's in there, you can go and check out this script out there on their site. You can kind of check it and see what's going on. But you'll notice this one says rport D. This does not say OpenRPort D. So they haven't changed this service, this script name yet. And then they're going to say, hey, if you want to use your email for your two-factor authentication, this is what you're going to put. I don't want to use email. I'm going to use --TOTP here instead. And that's going to let me set up my time-based two-factor authentication. And they've got that instruction right here, but it's down further. So you have to realize, oh, before I run this, go check all the documentation. So always read through everything and then go actually run things. Don't get in a hurry. Now, they give you a couple of different examples of things that you're doing. So if you're running this out like on a VPS, you could just run this one here and kind of go get it going. You just want to make sure that these ports are open and available so that you can run this wherever you're going to run it. And instead of using rport.localhost, you would use whatever your actual FQDN is. So if you're going to have rport.migratedomain.com, that's what you would put here. And we'll go through this together so you can understand that. And down here, they've got that kind of as a setup. If you're going to use DIN-DNS, you can do that. If you're going to use DuckDNS, you could do that. It's kind of up to you how you're going to get this set up, but you want to have an FQDN and you want to have the ability to make sure that these ports can be forwarded to the machine that's running rport, because these are the ports that it uses to create the tunnels between your client machines and your machine. Now, you can do all of this over the internet, and it's intended to be secure when you do that. My whole thing is I would rather use a VPN, and if I'm going to run this for clients, I would much rather have the clients going over the VPN to get to my rport server, over the VPN for me to connect to them through rport or run any scripts on them, because everything is encrypted on the VPN level, much less through rport in the tunnels. So I really would prefer to do it that way, and that's the way that I'm going to do it. And I'll show you guys how we're going to set that up. It's not much different from in the command here, but it is a little bit more set up to make sure that everything's on the VPN the way that you want. We are logged in. Now I'm going to update and upgrade everything on this server first. So I always do apt update, 2 ampersands, and then apt upgrade, and then -y, just like this. And that tells it, hey, go grab all the latest packages and then update the system. If you ever see this, it's just because it goes through kind of an auto update first. The first time you spin it up, it's kind of checking to make sure everything's up to date real quick and it's got everything running. Don't sweat it, just wait a minute or so and then try it again and see if it'll let you run that command. So I'm just going to try this again. I'm just going to hit the up arrow, and there it goes. It's updating my packages. Let's see if it can also do the upgrade. Yeah, it's going to go ahead and run the upgrade. So it's going to go run the upgrades that it needs to run, and then it'll be finished, and we can reboot it and we'll log right back in. If you ever get this page on DigitalOcean, you can just hit tab to get to the OK and then enter. All right, everything's done, and we did build a new kernel, so we should go ahead and reboot. So we're just going to do reboot, just like that. Hit enter and let it reboot real quick. It takes about 20 seconds. It doesn't take very long for that to happen. Once it's rebooted, we're just going to log right back in as root. All right, we're logged back in, and now what we want to do is we want to create a non-root user that has sudo privileges. So we're going to do add user, and then we're going to give that user a username. In this case, I'm going to use my name, Brian. We're going to be prompted for a password, so I'm going to give them a strong password here. We're going to confirm it, and then it's going to ask us for some information. You can fill this out or you can skip it. It's up to you. When you get to the end, you can just press Y, hit enter, and now we're going to add this user to the sudo group. So we're going to do user mod, just like that, space hyphen little a capital G. So this says modify the user and add them to the group sudo, and the user we want to add after that is Brian. Okay, I've been added to the sudo group. Now, with DigitalOcean, it's a little bit weird how they do the SSH keys, so I actually have to copy my SSH keys over and then change the permissions on them so that I can also use them as Brian. So I'm going to do cp-r.ssh to /home/Brian and then an n/. And what this says is copy everything inside of the .ssh folder, which is a hidden folder, to the home/Brian location. So we're going to do that. And now we're going to change the ownership. So chown, like that, -R, Brian::Brian, which means Brian user, Brian group. And we're going to do /home/Brian, and we don't have to do the actual /. And that should give us permissions to use those keys we just copied. All right, now we're going to exit, and we're going to SSH back in as Brian. And if we did everything correctly, we should get logged in, and we did. So there we go. All right. Now let's add a couple of dependencies we're going to need for this real quick. We're going to do sudo apt update just to make sure we get the latest packages. We'll put in our super user password here. And now we're going to do sudo apt install. And we're just going to do these. They may already be in here, but we're just going to make sure we've got everything. We're going to do curl wget git nano, just like that. So curl and wget are tools that we can use to get things off of the internet using HTTP addresses. Git is something where it'll pull down anything from the Git repository and actually do something with it. And then nano is a text editor I like. I think these are all here already, but let's just make sure. Yeah, everything's already installed, so nothing for us to do, but it's good to be sure that we have all the tools we want. All right, now we need to go grab that command that they provided. So we're going to go back in here to their instructions. And we're going to run this guy right here. We're just going to copy it, and we're going to go back to our terminal and paste it in. And it brought it down. So there we go. If we do an ls, we can see we've got the rport installer.sh. And we're going to go grab this command here. So we're going to use this one because we're going to use this through our VPN. So I'm going to hit copy. And I'm going to go back to my terminal. I'm going to paste that in. And I actually need to go back and change this here. So we'll use rport.sysmainit.com. Oops. We'll continue back here. And this part that has the email, I don't want to use. I want this to be TOTP. So I'm going to replace that with TOTP. Everything else should be good, and I'm going to hit enter. It's going to go out there and it's going to grab all the stuff we need, and it's going to try to set this up for us. All right, that only took a few seconds, and it's completed, and it's telling us here's how you can access this user interface. So the browser right here, now it's telling us rport.sysmainit.com:5000, and it's giving us a user and a password. It's important that you get this password and you keep it because you're going to need it when you log into this system. Okay, now that we've got that running, I've gone ahead and just typed in that address here. Now, I did have to go create an A record in my DNS so that would point rport.sysmainit.com to the IP address for my DigitalOcean server, and then I put the port number here, but we can just go ahead and click advance. We know this is going to be a self-signed certificate initially. And we're going to put in that username, and then we've got to get that password that we had. So we're going to go back here. Just going to highlight this. And we'll do copy. And don't worry that you can see it. I'm going to destroy this server after we're done with the video. We're going to paste that in there. And then you can say, hey, remember me for however much time you want. Now it's going to ask you to go ahead and set up two-factor authentication because we said I want to use TOTP for this. So you can get your two-factor app and get it ready. So once you've got your app ready, you're just going to click down here on this. And of course, you'll scan this QR code. And once you've got that, you can just type in the secure code to verify that you got it set up correctly. And we'll hit verify, and we should get logged in. And as I said, you may notice that there we go. Welcome to rport from real VNC. So this is what I'm talking about, that it's still the old user interface. They're supposed to be working on a new front-end user interface. You're going to see this whenever you get here. We can just hit start, and now they want you to add some machines, which makes sense. So you need to add machines, and you've got all the same controls here that you had before. There's nothing new about the OpenRPort user interface at this time. Once they come out with a new interface, I'll do an update video and I'll show you guys how that interface works and what you can do with it. But there's really a lot of stuff going on here. So you've got a way to set up your tunnels. You've of course got a way to set up your groups and your machines and things like that. So you can really set up a lot of machines in here. Like I said, even with like 500 machines that it's monitoring, it takes so little resource that could run on 2 gigs of RAM. So just keep in mind, this can do a lot of machines. So you've got this inventory. It'll show you machines. It'll show you what's going on, which ones are online, offline, things like that. This documentation area you need to unlock because it is encrypted, and once you've unlocked it, you can start keeping documentation in there so that you can say, hey, for this machine we have to do these things, or for these machines we have to do this, or for something, you know, for doing these updates, here's a script you could run, that kind of stuff. Now you have a place for scripts as well, so you've got these commands. You can set up these commands and you can save these commands to be reused later, which is super useful because you can run these commands right from here on different machines. You also have full scripts you can create. These could be PowerShell scripts, Bash scripts. It could just be any kind of script that you want to be able to run on the machines, on the client machines that you need to run them on. And again, you can run those in groups of machines, which is pretty awesome. You can set up schedules for different scripts or different commands to be run on these groups of machines as well. So maybe you have a backup command that you want to run, or you have some kind of update command that you want to run on a regular basis to make sure your machines are getting all the security updates that they need. Of course, you have settings, and you can go through here and set up all the different settings for the system. You've got people, you've got your settings section, you've got your RDP section here. So most of the time you're going to use something like a Microsoft RDP client or something like that, but maybe you have a web client you want to set up and get that running as well. As you go down, you've got your user settings. You can add different users and give them different permissions. You have user groups, so you can have groups of users that can do certain things with groups of machines. You have the client access right here as well. You have your client groups you can create, so that's actually talking about your client machines. You've got your vault, so this is how you're going to set up that vault for all that knowledge base information. You can set up API tokens and grab API tokens through this user interface as well. And then you've got support stuff if you need any kind of support for OpenRPort as well. Now this is probably going to point you back to RPort or Real VNC. I would definitely suggest go to the OpenRPort pages and go to that discussion on the GitHub site and ask questions there just to start. So once we go back here, you can again add machines. Now, I said I would rather add my machines through a VPN and have them access this through the VPN. So one of the things we need to do is actually go back into our terminal. Now we've logged in, we've got our password saved, so we can get back to that. We've set up our two-factor authentication. Make sure you do all those things, and you should go in and actually change this password and make it something much longer and stronger to be much more secure. We're going to just clear this out though, and we're going to go back to our system, and I'm going to go to a new tab here, and I'm going to go to netbird.sysmainit.com. This is my NetBird installation. Now maybe you have your own, or maybe you're using NetBird's online hosted system. That's fine. Once I'm at NetBird, I want to actually go and install the client on my machine. So I'm going to say add a new machine. I'm just going to copy this command right here. I'm going to go back. I'm going to paste that in. There we go. Put in my super user password and let this thing run. All right, we've got the NetBird client installed. So we're going to go back to the browser, and they've got this really great command. We're just going to copy this because it's going to point them right to our server. If you don't have a graphical user interface, you need to do this in a special way. So we're going to do -- setup -key, and then we're going to put in a setup key here. And we're going to go grab that from the browser as well. So we'll close this. We're going to go here to setup keys, and we're going to create a new setup key, and we'll call this our RPort server, and make this key reusable. No. 7 days is fine, probably longer than we need. Ephemeral, no. And auto-assigned groups. So we do want to put this in an auto-assigned group. Now this could be sysmainit, or it could be our client, so we'll just put it in sysmainit for now. And then we've got this key, so we're going to grab that key by copying it. We're going to go back over here, we're going to paste it in. We're just going to hit enter, and this is going to authenticate to our NetBird server and get us connected. So it tells us connected. Now we can do NetBird status. So this will give us just our basic status. It tells us what version we're using. It tells us what our IP address is on the NetBird network. If we want to see other clients, we can do NetBird status -d, which is detailed. And here you can see all the other clients and what their IP addresses are as well. So everybody who's connected, and we can see the peers. So we are connected, which is great. And if we go back to the user interface, we can close that, and we can go back here. And now we'll see we've got our RPort server connected as well. And this is the IP address that we're going to want to use for any of our clients that we're trying to manage using the RPort server. One of the things we need to do real quick so that we can add a client to our RPort server and make sure that it's going to connect through our VPN is that we need to go add our VPN address for the server to the configuration file. So the way we do that is we're going to go into our terminal here and we're going to do sudo nano, so that's the text editor, /etc/rport/rportd.conf. Just like this. And it's going to bring us into this file right here. And we're just going to scroll down a little bit here and you'll see this server section. And right here where it says the URL, this is the part that we want. And we're going to go right here to this little end bracket and we're going to put a comma, open quote, and then I'm just going to paste this in and then close the quote. But what we want to put here is http:// and then the IP address for our NetBird VPN for this server. So that's what this IP address is right here, :8000. And then end your quote and make sure you have that end bracket, and then we're going to save with Control-O, hit enter, and Control-X, just like this. And we're just going to restart the RPort service. We're going to do sudo systemctl restart RPort service. That should have done it. All right, once we're back in our server, there's a couple of ways to add clients. You can do it right here and then you type in your own IP address, or you can click this little plus and you see it generates an auto IP address for us. I kind of like that method because it's just easier. I'm going to call this Ansible server because that's the one that I'm going to add. And I'm going to just click on this button here and it's going to take us to this little pop-up, and you see it's got the RPort, the public IP address here, but I can come down and pick the VPN address, which is the one that I want. Now here you've got these different options you can check or uncheck. I'm just going to leave them all checked, and there's more options you can add later as well. And then I'm just going to copy this Linux one to the clipboard, and I'm going to go log into my Ansible server and we're going to add it. So I'm just going to open up a new window here, and I'll increase the font size a little bit for you here, and we'll do SSH Brian at, and that's my local IP address for my Ansible server. And then I'm going to paste in, and it's going to ask me for my super user password. And you can see here it says, thank you for using OpenRPort. So now if we go back in RPort and we hit close, we should be able to refresh our view here, and then there's our Ansible server. So we can click on the Ansible server and we can see all of the details for Ansible that it's able to collect at this point. And we've got all kinds of things we can do here. We've got tunnels. We've got the vault, which is still locked. We can unlock that later. We've got documents, again, locked. We got commands that we can run. We've got scripts that we can run. We can go to the monitoring. So you can see there's some different monitoring things here that it'll start trying to pick up over time. There's no data available quite yet. We've got files, so we can move files around, and we've got an audit to see what's been going on with our server. So we've really got a lot of stuff happening here, and we've added this server, and it was super easy and super straightforward to get this done. So that's how you get OpenRPort up and running. That's how you add it to your VPN, and that's how you add a client to it through your VPN as well. Now there's a lot more you can do in RPort, and we'll go through that and we'll make sure that you guys understand that, and we'll add on the NetBird stuff to understand the groups and things later. But I wanted to give you this little overview and let you know that OpenRPort exists. It's awesome because RPort was awesome, and until they closed sourced it, it was an amazing tool. So OpenRPort is going to keep that alive. I'd love for you to get out there and really encourage these guys to keep things going. I'm excited to see this new front end when they get it ready, so keep that in the back of your minds as well. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it so they can come along on the open source journey with us, and I'll talk to you next time.